Hello, Acharja agus Falcha. Hello, my friends, and welcome. Let me ask you, have you ever wished to receive a fairy gift? Perhaps a gift of wealth, or love, or beauty? Well, I'm here to tell you, after looking at fairy legends for a couple of decades now, that fairy gifts are not all they're cracked up to be. Often they go wrong. There's certainly strings attached. However, there is one notable exception, and that is an exception for you and for me. That is for creative people. Almost invariably, the only fairy gift that goes right and doesn't actually turn out to be a curse or a real problem is a gift to a creative person. And today I want to tell you why I think that is, and I want to tell you how you can receive a gift of enchantment today, no waiting. So welcome back, my friends who've been with me. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome for the first time, anyone who's just joining us. I'm delighted to have you. My name is Kate, and like you, I am a creative person, a multi-passionate creator, and I'm also a professor of Irish folklore and Irish language. And I love the way that creativity and Irish studies play together in such a fruitful and interesting and fascinating and generative way. So I'm really happy to be with you. Well, as I told you, fairy gifts in general turn out not to be gifts, just to put it very, very bluntly. You receive something and you do it wrong, almost invariably. It's human nature. You know, it's a kind of thing where you receive a gift of gratitude from a fairy. For instance, in one Donegal tale, a woman receives a gift of an ever full oatmeal chest. So, but the catch is that she's the only one who can scoop out of that oatmeal chest. And of course, eventually, and they come to rely on it, and eventually her husband, without thinking about it, puts the scoop in, and that's the end of that gift. That's quite mild. There are other gifts where you end up with a lot more trouble than that. I'll leave it there. But the exception, as I mentioned, is for creative people. And I want to tell you a story, a version of a story that is told all over Ireland. And so here it is. Fado fado in éireann bhí ceoltar an uairhhain. Once long ago in Ireland, there was a musician, and he wasn't really much of a musician. In fact, he only knew just a very few tunes. He was walking down the road to a dance where he had been asked to play for the evening, and he was hanging his head and his fiddle tucked under his arm, when out of nowhere, it seemed, he met a little red-haired man who came level with him on the road and said, "Why so glum? What's the problem?" And our fiddler said, "Well, the problem is I'm going to a dance to play for the whole night. Everyone's excited to hear me, but I only know 3 tunes, and you know how it is. They're going to start to get so bored. You can only play them so many times." The old fella nodded his head, and he said, "Oh, that is true. Could I see your fiddle just for a minute?" And without thinking very much, the fiddler handed over the fiddle. And the little red-haired man took a moment and he tuned the fiddle, just listened and tuned and sharpened the pitch, and made it ring. It was beautiful. And he handed it back to the young fiddler and he said, "Your fiddle is tuned now. Go to the dance and enjoy yourself." And so the young fiddler, without really knowing anything more about it, went to the dance. And he played his first 3 tunes that he always played, and they went well. But when it came to the 4th tune, he didn't know what was going to happen. But amazing to say, he put the bow to the strings, and it began to leap and dance, and his fingers flew over the fretboard. And he was making the most glorious music. Music was pouring out of him. All kinds of tunes, jigs and reels and hornpipes and mazurkas and polkas, barn dances. It was marvelous, and it lasted all night. The people danced and sweated and whooped and cheered, And by the end of the night, he was carried out on their shoulders, and they loved him so much. And that's how it was for the rest of his life. He gave great joy to everyone with music for the rest of his life. And after a long, happy life of music, when he laid on his deathbed and breathed his last, the fiddle, which was sort of hanging up on the wall just next to his bed, as soon as he breathed his last, the strings came off the fiddle, crack, and the fiddle cracked, and no one could play it again. Sinné Mishgéalsa Mata Brig an Biu. That's my story, and if there's a lie in it, so be it. So that story I love, and it's a story in which a fairy gift brings joy to everyone. There's no drawback. In this case, there's not even, there are many, many stories in which someone, as a reward for playing in a hurley game, receives an enchanted hurley stick. But it's not long until that athlete finds himself in the other world, we'll say, has died and is playing for the fairies, is now a player in that other world and not here. By contrast, in this tale, the fiddler gets to enjoy a lifetime of music and a lifetime of knowing and a repertoire that brings so much happiness. Now, when I think about why that is, I think the reason is it is considered by the fairies, and when I say by the fairies, I also mean by the people who tell stories about the fairies, it is considered right. It is right, and it is in flow with life to give your gift. And if you've taken the trouble to know 3 tunes, you have the capacity to learn more tunes. And this was just a little bit of an enchanted step up into a whole repertoire. So the sense that give your gifts. Music is a great source of joy and consolation and company, and there's no downside. Now, receiving fairy money often ends up with people's houses burning down, just to say. There's a downside. There's a sense that money must be handled with some care. I wouldn't say that there's a sense that money is evil or anything like that, but money must be handled with thoughtfulness and care. On the other hand, a gift of an enchanted fiddle or a tuned up fiddle, and in that too, I think there's the difference as well, which is he already had a fiddle. He already had made a start. That's like us. We're in the midst of our making right now. So we too are eligible for just such a gift. And I want to encourage you to take that in right now. I'd like you to enter the story. This is how you can receive this gift immediately. I'd like you to think about a way that in your making you feel a little bit stuck or held back. And it could be something as simple as, I'm really not sure what to focus on next. Could be something like that. Or it could be, I'm having a lot of trouble learning this piece. Or perhaps I'm having some trouble with my memory, with committing something to memory. Or if you're a painter, I can't seem to get the colors right. Or this little section of the painting is giving me trouble. Or whatever it is, whether you're a painter or a poet or a storyteller, or dancer, singer, anything. Just think for a minute about where you might be a little bit hung up. Now enter the story and imagine that you are walking down the road carrying the tools of your trade. Now that might be a guitar, it might be your paintbrushes, it might be your dancing shoes, it might be your pen and notebook where you write your poems, whatever it is. See yourself walking down the street, down a road, and if you like, come to Ireland. So there's almost nobody on the road, and there's this beautiful kind of bog fields on both sides of you. You're walking down the road, and here comes level with you, out of nowhere it seems, a little red-haired man with twinkling blue eyes. And he asks you what the problem is. Tell him how you're hung up. Now he's going to ask you to hand over the tools of your trade, whatever that is. Imagine handing those over. Imagine he just tunes them up. whatever that is, maybe he runs his finger along your paintbrush or he tunes your guitar. Just imagine this with me right now. I'm imagining it too. Now imagine he hands it back and says, your fiddle is tuned, or your paintbrushes are tuned, or your guitar is tuned. Now go to the dance and enjoy yourself. Now that's a part of the magic, right? That is a part, an important part of the magic. You go and do the thing, right? You receive the gift, the gift of enchantment. Your fiddle is tuned, your life is tuned, your creativity is tuned. Now go to the dance. Now the dance is life's dance, right? It's not just one event. It's a whole lifetime of being a creator, which is truly, I love to say that the reward for our creativity is a life of creativity. It really isn't the rest, right? It is bringing pleasure to people. It is the fascination and the pleasure that we receive. So go to the dance and enjoy yourself. Now go do something with that gift of enchantment. You have the power through your imagination to receive that gift. And you have the power through your action today to put it to good use. So I'd like to ask you, what are you eager to do now? What action are you going to take now that your symbolic fiddle is tuned? Please tell us in the comments. And if you want, you can also tell us what challenge you are ready to overcome and what you're ready to do now that your fiddle is tuned. I hope you enjoy that. I hope you like that. I hope you moment by moment is how we tune the fiddle, the symbolic fiddle, right? It happens in moments like this of imagination and commitment and our devotion. I so appreciate you, my friends. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for joining us here. If you haven't, please subscribe. That helps us get the word out to more people who are like us. And that's what we're after, is to be together in this creative community. So thank you, my friends. I'm wishing you a happy, enchanted, creative week. I'll see you next week. Slán na nish.